Thank you. I'm going to try to share screen. Give me a moment. Okay, so this is part of my written communications, which I've sent in for the day. So looking at the environmental site assessments, so I see that the property had an EDR historical auto shop from 2002 to 2008 listed. It had 4 underground storage tanks. 2 appear to have been removed within the past year or so. There were multiple hazmat drums on the site, a 300-gallon AST for diesel, and there's 2 landfill pits with unknown contents. Did the owner, with regards to Cupertino Municipal Code Chapter 9 regarding the storage of hazardous materials, did the owner have a permit for the hazardous materials being stored on the site according to Chapter 9 of the Cupertino Municipal Code? Does anyone know?
Right. I think that some of these were addressed in the desk items, so I'll just repeat kind of what was provided through that, if that's okay.
Thank you.
For the most part, for the questions you have laid out here regarding Chapter 9, those specific uses that were previously on the site, we don't have any record of them having a permit. That might be because they're dated too far back, or it might be because they didn't get any, but regardless, they're not currently operating on the site.
Okay. So the answer to like all of these questions regarding Chapter 9, did the owners have an approved HMMP? Did they have the inventory statement? Did they submit a closure plan? All of that would be no.
Right, that's an assumed no. The closure plan, I will note, however, that's associated with the closure of those underground storage tanks, and for that we did receive from the applicant a closure permit, and they did go through the process for closing out those underground storage tanks that you noted to be removed.
But not through the CUPA, not through Santa Clara County Department of Environmental Health, which it gets into Chapter 17. So how are the on-site landfills typically closed? Because there appear to be 2 on-site pits that have a depth over 5 feet, and according to our municipal code, that would have needed a grading permit. So I don't believe they had a grading permit for it. Does the city allow a homeowner to create an on-site landfill?
Typically, no. So again, these might be predating our municipal code requirements.
Okay, so from the environmental site assessments, they were looking for the underground storage tanks, and I can get you the scans that they had. So they're looking for the underground storage tanks, and they found some debris pits. And so here's the first one, showing debris from about 2 feet to 6 feet deep. So that went over the 5-foot standard for grading, needing a permit, and then it's some kind of debris. We don't know what's there. And then the next pit is 8 feet in depth, and these are about 10 to 12 feet wide. So this is a second pit, and we don't really know what's in it, which is of concern. Okay, so I'll continue back to those questions. So with regards to how is a landfill typically closed, would they go to Santa Clara County DEH for regulatory oversight to have the disposition of the materials inside of these pits determined, and then have a closure notice at some point?
Right. I'll note that I don't know if I'm familiar with the landfill requirements. However, again, in this case, we're not contemplating this as a landfill. It may have been something where debris was, stored underground, and or kind of waste was settled there. But that being said, looks like we have.
I apologize. I believe the fire department may have a comment that could clarify this real quick.
Hi, thank you. Brad Fox, Santa Clara County Fire Department. So we did issue a closure permit for the 2 tanks that were found on site, and we inspected the removal of those tanks, and that permit was finalized on June 23rd of 2025. And then our process is, once we close out that closure permit, we forward our findings on to County Department of Environmental Health And along with that is a report of the soil samples that are taken around the tanks. And then they make the determination if they are going to issue any further action environmentally based on those soil reports that are part of the closure permit. So the action that they found was no further action was required, and they closed their process.
Okay, but also without having a full site inspection showing the hazardous materials, the multiple waste drums, the above-ground storage tank with 300 gallons of diesel, and the 2 waste pits, and with the knowledge that this is a project that's trying to get approval for a multifamily residential, and they are the Certified Unified Program Agency. Thank you. So under Cupertino's Municipal Code, Chapter 17, for hazardous materials, underground soils, storage tanks, and soil disturbing activities. And again, I think we already know the answer. Did the owners follow the hazardous materials permit requirement to contact either, and this is according to our municipal code, to contact EPA, DTSC, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, or the CUPO, which is Santa Clara County DEH, and enter into an oversight agreement. And in our municipal code, it says that this needs to be done before, prior to approval of the project. So that would have needed to be done before at this point, and we already know the answer to that. Now, with regards to the 2 landfill sites. So now you've got mixed contents in them. We don't know what it is, and we have a geotechnical report which didn't address what's in these 2 pits. So I don't see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but how can they make a determination for the mat foundations on the site when they haven't done a study of these particular locations? And to my knowledge, we don't know exactly where these pits are. And they disturbed soil in order to get to the storage tanks out of the ground. So we don't know what the compaction was for those particular areas.
Right. I'll give a high-level response to that, and then we may need to call upon our environmental specialists for additional information. But my understanding is that the geotechnical report will be updated with additional borings once we get to our construction drawings and our structural kind of review. And so at that time, they'll take samples of those soils, and they'll test for any sort of contaminants. And then we also have a condition on the project, in addition to the requirement for the geotechnical structural follow-up, to provide an SMP if any contaminated soils are encountered during that review. And so again, that's a very high level. If you want more detail, I'd be happy to call up our environmental
Okay, thank you. And one of the environmental site assessments suggested that we have an SMP for the site, and I would have preferred to see that right today, along with the regulatory oversight already have been requested prior to the owners doing soil disturbing activities, which according to Chapter 17 is something they should have done. So what you have up on the screen here right now is the preliminary fire access plan. My concern here, first, is this layout with the bioretention areas at the entrance. So what you're seeing here is a fire truck making a very wide turn into the site, and it's coming from the south to the north. I don't see a sweep study showing it being able to come from the north, which is actually the shorter distance to get into the neighborhood, and being able to make that turn. Do you have a auto turn showing that direction being accessed? Or is this a situation where the fire truck needs to go all around the neighborhood and then come up and swing to make a left-hand turn in?
Yeah, I think this would be something, since we have fire staff here, that they could be the best to answer that question in terms of the truck operation.
Okay, thank you. And while we're on this page, Evulich Court was dedicated to the city back in 1969 when they were looking at having an R1 7,500 square foot lot subdivision. So it was a regular cul-de-sac, and it was going to have look like single family homes a long time ago. Hello.